what's going on? Hellbite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about something that has been cropping up a lot on Twitter recently, which is to say the controversy around KDA All-Out Evelynn's hair, and to build off of that into something that I think would be useful to kind of give an idea on how you guys can actually give skin feedback that is actionable and things that you can actually change once the skin has been shown up. Now, in case you are unaware, which I would guess probably a lot of you are, the KDA skins have gone out on PvE recently, and fans essentially were surprised to find out that the KDA All-Out Evelynn's hairstyle was different in the in-game model than it is in her splash art. Now, this should not be a surprise to anyone who has played the game for a while. Generally speaking, a champion's splash art or a skin's splash art will not fully represent the character or skin in-game, and that's simply because a lot of times models tend to need to be simpler in order to read better in-game, especially things like having a lot of very small details tend to get cleaned up and washed out in the model because they don't read very well from a distance, they don't read very well from, very far up top, so the in-game view, a lot of times the small details sort of muddy up the model and it's hard to tell exactly what's going on with them. But so generally speaking, it shouldn't surprise people to find out that that is sort of the case with KDA All-Out Evelynn, which I will henceforth call KDA Evelynn. You guys should know the one I'm talking about because the name is just too long to keep saying. But either way, so people were saying, hey, well, this doesn't match up. What's up with that, right? And essentially, the skins team, led by Katie Anthony, said that they weren't able to make it longer due to clipping issues, because if they hadn't made the hair that long, it would clip during a fair few number of Evelynn's animations, and so they decided that in order, it wouldn't look very good, and they didn't have the necessary time to add the additional bones and rigging into Evelynn's hair in order to make such a longer hairstyle viable. And that's essentially because at that point, they would essentially be making a legendary skin for Evelynn because they would have to be adding new bones, new rigging, everything like I just said. So if they were to make a legendary skin for Evelynn, that would be on the cards, but since KDA All-Out Evelynn is not actually a legendary skin, they don't have the option to do that. Now, this happened, right? Essentially said, hey, here's why we made the call to do what we did, and the community pitched what I am going to call a bitch fit, and that is a very unpleasant thing to say, but it is essentially what happened. They accused Riot of all sorts of ridiculous claims, like false advertising, and that the skin is garbage, and that essentially the skins team should be fired for not living up to the skins promise and not giving their queen Evelynn what she deserved. Now, Riot have since edited the All-Out Evelynn splash art to reflect her in-game hair. That has not stopped complaints at all. Essentially, fans are still saying, wow, you can't change the skin in-game. Holy crap, Riot, you suck. This is a cop-out, this is a sellout, whatever you want to say. It has not stopped. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people are upset with it. So first off, I do want to address the elephant in the room, which is I'm going to say, y'all should stop complaining about the skin. As I kind of talked about in my now infamous Certainly T video, these are real people with jobs. Calling for their firing because they made something you don't like in a free-to-play video game is pretty ridiculous, and I just think it's a bad look no matter who you are, no matter how hard you're simping for KDA Evelynn. I don't think it's a good look to say, hey, you, real-life person, you should be fired for making a decision that I don't like because it would have essentially upgraded the skin to a tier that you were not intending to make. And also, you would not be able to make it without doing a legendary, which they weren't going to do because they already made an ultimate for Seraphine that's releasing at the same time. And on this topic, Seraphine is not a real person, but people are willing to be supportive of her no matter what happens. She's not a real person. She doesn't actually have anxiety. She isn't actually nervous about performing because she doesn't actually exist. But people are treating Seraphine with so much more respect than the actual Riot employees that are responsible for making your champions, for making your skins, for making the game that you so enjoy. So I think in general, if you guys are getting that upset over a skin, I would suggest taking a step away from your keyboard and asking yourself, is this really worth it? But in order to actually give this video a point beyond just essentially saying y'all need to chill, I did want to talk a little bit about how players can actually give feedback on skins. Katie Chaos actually made a very good thread about it, which I will have linked down in the description below, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it myself and kind of give you a paraphrase on exactly what was discussed. First and foremost, the best thing you can do is give actionable feedback on the skin. So if a skin releases for your champion or just for any champion, it's better to say, what you don't like and why you don't like it, rather than saying something like, wow, this sucks. So, for example, being able to say, this skin is bad and should never have been made. Well, that doesn't tell Riot anything. That doesn't actually do anything for their skin designs. That essentially means nothing. All you're doing is complaining for the sake of complaining. Conversely, if you say something like, I don't like how opaque the Nami bubble is on this skin because it feels pay to lose, that's an actionable feedback that Riot can actually take into account and attempt to make changes for. Or saying something like, I don't like the color of the hairstyle because it doesn't quite match the splash art. That's something Riot can actually change. The other thing is that Riot have a very limited amount of things that they can change once the skin is on PvE. They literally can't do certain things once the skin has been revealed on PvE. They can make small model tweaks, texture changes, or sound tweaks in advance, or can do VFX changes if there is a gameplay concern. So in the aforementioned example with an opaque bubble, Riot could take a look at changing the VFX on that because there is a gameplay concern. Otherwise, they don't really do VFX. But these are generally small things. So I don't really like how that particular texture looks. I don't really like how that particular cloth is clipping or hanging off the back of the champion. Those sorts of things Riot can make small changes to. They cannot, however, add new animations to a model. Once the champion is out, they cannot add new animations to it. They can't make large model changes. Hairstyle is literally the example Katie uses in her post. They cannot change a character's hairstyle once the skin is on PvE. That is locked in. They can't make larger texture changes, so essentially reskinning the whole character. And they can't make big audio changes or VFX changes. So they can't, for example, swap the entire particle effect set of the skin into a different color. They can't remove the voice processing from a skin entirely. They can tweak certain things about these, but they cannot make fundamental changes. So again, essentially, once it's on the PvE, it can be tweaked, but not fully changed. So what this means is that there are certain things that you will have to live with if a skin comes out for your favorite champion, and you're not necessarily happy about it. Very small things can be tweaked, and those are the things you should be focusing on, but the general gist of the skin, once it is on the PvE, is locked in, and there's nothing else Riot can do about it. So, love it or hate it, there is not very much you can do at that point, no matter how much you want to complain to change the skin. It is what it is, and Riot can't really affect it at all. So anyways, I hope you guys found that was a little bit interesting, a little bit important when talking about skin lines in the future or skins that you don't appreciate. Because that is really what you want to be saying. Those are the kinds of feedback that you want to be giving, right? Because that is what will let you actually get the skin that you want, or at least closer to the skin that you want, as opposed to just complaining for the sake of complaining and no change gets made. I would also suggest, hey guys, seriously, lay off Riot for this. Evelynn is still getting 2 skins this year. She's getting a KDA skin, and if KDA continues to be the money spinner, I think it will be, she will have essentially a skin a year every time another KDA album or EP or whatever you want to call it comes out. So I don't think that's that big of a deal to be worried about one skin maybe not being what you want. Evelynn is still getting an incredibly high quality skin, and at the end of the day, that's really the most important thing, is that you are still getting one. For example, I could point out Ornn, who is still waiting on the skin Riot promised him at the beginning of the year, as opposed to Evelynn players who knew they were getting one the second they said KDA is going to have another album, and yet are still upset. So generally speaking, that's where I kind of stand on this, but let me know what you guys think of both the KDA Evelynn controversy or any of the skin feedback I gave down in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts about it. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video just like this every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.